Hey guys, welcome back to more Malicious Compliance Reddit stories. In this Ripe Stories video, my new boss lied to me, cut my salary, and tried to destroy my team that I built from the ground up. He claimed the client was unhappy despite the fact that they were emailing me praise personally, so instead of fighting him, I maliciously complied with his impossible demands. Let's dive right into the video. And the first one is titled, "My former employers lost their client and business because of me." Posted on r/MaliciousCompliance. So a few years back in 2018, I had decided to switch employers. I worked as a chat support specialist and eventually a supervisor for a major tech company. I had decided to switch to a small-time customer support agency that was just starting a new chat team. They had better pay and benefits because they only had a small number of employees compared to the former. The description of the position I was to be hired for was another salary-based supervisory role for their brand new chat team for the client. I would basically be doing the same thing as my previous job, but also spearheading this small department while simultaneously training other co-workers with zero experience in chat support. This was going extremely well and our client was ecstatic at the results of the new chat program. They had personally sent me an email over my progress. The company I left was, and still is, known worldwide to have the friendliest and professional customer support out of any other company. And by the way guys, if you can guess what company that is that has the best customer support, let me know in the comments, because I'm not really aware of any companies having amazing customer support. Definitely not YouTube, let me tell you that. Anyway, and so it was easy to apply what I learned to this new position, and after about 2 months of doing this, the person I directly reported to, the regional supervisor, was retiring. Our new regional came in and was friendly at first, but decided that he didn't want to waste his time on chat and directed me and my team to phone support, which was not in our job description, nor what I was hired for by any means, and my salary also got reduced, and my boss/regional supervisor said we needed to reduce costs. He also cited that the client was unhappy with the results, which was in stark contrast to what they had told me directly. Even after forwarding him the email, he was still not doing anything about it. So I complied. It took just 2 days for the client to have reached out to me personally, and after explaining to them the situation, they were livid. My new regional had lied to me about his contact with the client and had essentially ignored our client's attempt to contact him about this issue. I then had continued to work in the supervisory role for phones until the first quality review of my employees came up, and for team leads and direct call center employees both, this is where I review their interactions and grade them based off their strengths and weaknesses. Our regional wanted me to even include the chat support team who were neither hired or trained for phones. He refused to give them training. On every single employee who was hired for chat support, I had filed all of them as unable to be completed, and in my notations I included that this is not the position they were hired or trained for, and thus an analysis could not be accurately completed. I then sent this to both the regional manager and our client as well, since at this point I had a direct contact email. I was responded to the same day by whoever it is within our client who oversees all of the outsourcing. The only words I got back were, "We will deal with this." The client held a meeting the following week with my employers. I'm not sure what was said in that meeting, but word got back to everyone that the client had dropped us for a breach of contract because this was a small office and our company's only client for several years. This was really bad. After that, me and my team were offered a position with the company directly doing the things we were hired to do, but required us to move about 4 hours north, so unfortunately none of us decided to accept that offer. I collected unemployment until I found a new job, and now the company is out of business and is currently being sued by some other employees for unpaid wages. Also, this new case has been going on since 2019. Edit, by the way, for clarification purposes, because it seems to confuse some people, it is just one office of less than 300 employees. The name of his position was Regional Supervisor. It was pretty stupid to name him that, but that's what he was called, even though he worked the only office that existed. I'll assume it was to make the role look more attractive than it actually is. Anyway, the next one is a fantastic petty revenge story that you don't want to miss. It is super satisfying. So, it is titled Hawaiian Resort. I worked at a company for almost 15 years, in the 90s and early 2000s. Towards the end of my time there, we hired a supervisor. I did not report to him, but he would read documents on my desk when I was not there and would sometimes make copies of my product and give it to his subordinates, telling them to modify it to fit what they were working on. To be honest, I didn't care since we all worked for the same company, but it was the sneakiness and doing it behind my back that irritated me for real. He was also an obnoxious person, blowing his own horn and basking in the success of his guys way too much. In short, he was not well liked. A coworker, Bert or Bert, and I had been attending a conference in Hawaii every year. We were good friends and hung out together with others from the conference that we met once a year. It was a reward for doing our jobs right. The conference was at a resort hotel in Waikiki Beach, but the rooms were limited and would be sold out by the time the conference began. If you didn't make your reservations in advance, you would have to stay somewhere else. Tom, the supervisor, saw the travel authorization form on my desk that I had to submit for the conference and then filled one out for himself to go. He was then told that there was only funding to send 2 people, so he went up the management chain to get approval for himself. Because he outranked me and my coworker, one of us had to withdraw our paperwork to go. We literally flipped a coin and I won. I traveled frequently and had accumulated lots of frequent flyer miles. Because the flight time was over a certain number of hours from the East Coast to Honolulu, we were authorized to travel in business class, which was a huge benefit. I did not want to sit next to Tom, so I used miles to upgrade from business class to first class, and I didn't tell Tom about my upgrade. Our travel agent was able to get reservations for both of us at the resort hotel, and Tom, being Tom, let everyone in the office know that he was going to Hawaii, bragging about flying in business class and staying at a Hawaiian resort. He also told me that I was expected to introduce him to the conference regulars, take him to the best restaurants, and show him a good time. It got to be too much, and I intended to avoid him as much as possible while we were there. We were flying out on Sunday and flying back on an overnight flight the next Saturday. Saturday afternoon I called to confirm my airline reservation, something I'd learned to do over my years of frequent travel. Asking about seats, I was told that there were no business class or first class seats available, but the coach still had some, and that got me thinking. I called from a payphone later that day and changed Tom's reservation to a business class flight on Monday. I then called the hotel and cancelled his room. I checked in at the airport Sunday morning and then went to the first class lounge to wait for my flight to be called, and when the announcement came over the loudspeakers, I grabbed my stuff and went to the gate. They were boarding the first class passengers as I arrived there, so I got on the phone, found my seat and ordered a drink. When most of the plane was boarded, Tom came through the jetway looking furious. Seeing me, he stopped and started ranting about the airline ducking up his reservation. The flight attendant quickly told him that he needed to be seated. He asked her if there were any empty seats other than coach, and she apologized, but the premier cabins were full. Twice during the flight he came up to my seat to complain some more. The agent at the counter was actually able to change his ticket to this flight, but could only get him a seat in coach. He was assigned the middle seat in a center row of 5 seats and couldn't get comfortable. He ranted on, even asking if I would switch with him for the last half of the flight. I politely declined and didn't see him again until we were at the luggage carousel to get our bags. We took the courtesy shuttle to the hotel and waited in line to check in. He was at the check-in next to me when he learned that he had no reservation at the sold-out Hawaiian resort. He went ballistic. A manager was summoned and took him to another computer station about 20 feet away. I didn't stick around and went up to my room. My phone rang about 15 minutes later, and it was Tom pitching a fit. He told me that he needed to share my room with me since it was where the conference was. He complained that the manager was only able to secure a room for him at a motel about a 10-minute walk away. Although I had 2 queen-sized beds, I told him my room only had 1 bed. I didn't mention the balcony with the ocean view or the separate living room area. And yeah, I saw Tom during all of the sessions. I took pity on him and he hung out with me at the cocktail social after the first day of sessions and tagged along with me and my companions for dinner. We flew back Saturday evening, and since he was in business class, he didn't come up to complain. I did confess to Bert at lunch a few days after returning, and he said it kind of made up for not being able to travel with me. And the next one is an XXL super satisfying malicious compliance story that you don't want to miss. It is titled, "My French Stepmother Learns the Hard Way That Americans Can Cook." So this happened today, and my brother and I are still laughing about it, except for Gabrielle, sad stepmother, and dad, who is embarrassed about it. So basically, my dad came into town to visit my brother, let's call him Mark, and me for a few days, and brought Gabrielle with him. Gabrielle has her good traits, but she does have this one really nasty trait. She is notoriously picky and critical when it comes to food. You know, the stereotypical snooty and rude French character in movies and books who always complains about "That is not how this is done in France." Well, she is this way when it comes to food. Going out to eat with her is embarrassing. She constantly sends back food, is insistent on food being made a certain way, and always demands certain things done a certain way. One time she asked the waiter to bring some mustard to the table, and not 2 minutes later she called him back because "the mustard is old, bring us a new unopened bottle." More than once I've had to apologize to the waitstaff on my family's behalf and told the manager that I will vouch for them should Gabrielle leave a bad review on their site. She's made waiters and managers cry, she's really that bad, and honestly, I have no idea why Dad puts up with her when she does that, even though I know he's just as embarrassed as Mark and I are. We can only chalk it up to her having a magical hoo-ha. When they got here yesterday, for some reason, they insisted they wanted to go out to dinner. Dad recommended our new favorite new diner, which is known for its breakfasts at any time of the day. We live close to a major interstate, and the saying about truckers knowing all the best diners and holes in the wall in all 50 states and then some is true. It's a greasy spoon in every sense of the word, right out of the 1950s. Every leather booth filled with truckers or locals, waitresses who automatically know their regulars' order by heart and don't put up with crap from anyone, and a bustling kitchen, while spotless, is just one enough to let you know many people have been there. In other words, it has character. It may not look like a 5-star restaurant, but it has some of the best breakfasts you're ever gonna eat. However, I was hesitant to take Gabrielle there, if only because I didn't want to ruin the staff's day. Mark and I have been there enough times that the waitstaff and cooks know us. However, Dad wanted Gabrielle to experience a true American classic and was offering to pay, so off we reluctantly went. Luckily though, we got there during a not really busy time, so I told Dad to find a parking spot and I would go in to get us a table. The reason I did this was so I could warn the staff about Gabrielle and apologize in advance for anything she did. Fortunately, our usual waitress, let's call her Mary, thanked me for the warning and warned the rest of the staff. So we go in, get our booth, and Gabrielle tries pulling her usual stunts. I won't go into everything she did because we will be here forever, but I will leave a highlight reel. Number 1, Gabrielle sent Mary back 3 times with the coffee because in order it was too cold, it was too hot, and not enough cream. Finally, Mary, who doesn't let anybody push her around, just slapped the coffee pot on the table along with the cream and sugar and told Gabrielle to make do because she was not gonna get back her damn coffee. This made Mark and me chuckle and Gabrielle steam. While waiting and probably still stewing from Mary's little comeback with the coffee, Gabrielle decided to accost Stephanie, who had just started, and tell her to get some fresh biscuits. Not ask, tell. Poor Stephanie, who's understandably anxious about her job, does as told, and then Gabrielle made a fuss about the packets of butter not being soft enough, despite Stephanie explaining that all the butter was kept cold for safety reasons. Gabrielle made a snide remark about how Stephanie could not wait 5 extra minutes to let the butter soften, which made Stephanie tear up and me about ready to tell Gabrielle to go F a French chef if food was that important to her. Number 3, when our meals did arrive, Gabrielle was quiet during the meal, not making comments. I was unsure what was gonna happen as a result. Either she really liked it, which I doubted seeing as I've never seen her compliment anyone's cooking whenever we've gone out, or she was planning some nasty barb, which I feared. When Mary dropped off the bill, Gabrielle took it before Dad could and said she was paying. Because I was sitting next to her, Gabrielle left a big fat 0 in the tip line and left a note about, "It's cute that American chefs think they are good cooks when they've never stepped in a real kitchen before. Prove me wrong." Before closing the little book, the receipt came in and hiding it so nobody else could see what she wrote. And yeah, let me tell you, I was pissed when I read that note and was about ready to slap Gabrielle. I know the chefs and servers who work at this particular diner learned their skills on the job, and if you ask me, they have every right to be proud of their work as someone who went to culinary school would be. While I'm looking at going to culinary school myself to become a pastry chef, I respect people who have learned by working in kitchens / on the floor because they have first-hand experience. I took out $100 using the ATM at the diner and gave it to the staff as a tip along with an apology for her behavior, embarrassed and angry. Fortunately, they didn't hold it against us except Gabrielle, and told me that Mark and I were always welcome back. I also decided I was gonna get back at Gabrielle. There was a benefit to this lockdown. During this time, bored out of our wits and wanting to better our skills, Mark and I have been binge-watching recipe and cooking how-to videos online, along with practicing. And by the way guys, I think this story took place during the pandemic. Either way, while I don't like bragging, I would say we've become quite good. We know how to smoke our own bacon, cure corned beef, make creamy scrambled eggs, and bake flaky croissants, and that's just a sampling. When we get home, I told Mark my plan and he was grinning ear to ear. The next day, while Gabrielle and Dad still slept, Mark and I got up early and got right to work. We prepared scrambled eggs, home-cured / smoked bacon, biscuits and a fruit salad. Dad woke up early, smelled the breakfast, waking up Gabrielle by saying that the kids were making breakfast. Dad came downstairs first and Mark asked him to set the table. Gabrielle came down as we were finishing up and she sits down not offering to help. While Gabrielle commented about how it smells just like a restaurant she went to in France and couldn't wait to taste everything, Mark and I served Dad and our plates before putting everything back. Gabrielle looked at us confused. I looked at her. "Oh, I thought you were going to a French cafe for breakfast," I said. "You did write on the receipt at the diner that you thought it was cute Americans think they are good cooks if they haven't set foot in a real kitchen and you wanted someone to prove you wrong." Dad looked at Gabrielle, his eyes wide as all the color drained from Gabrielle's face. "You wrote what?" "Well, hop to it," I said, sitting down. "Enjoy your French breakfast with your French chefs." Gabrielle's face reddened before she left. I don't know if she was embarrassed or angry, but we were able to have a nice breakfast without any of Gabrielle's complaining. She did come back after getting breakfast and has been nice and quiet all day, but hopefully she has learned her lesson and Dad grows a backbone. Update to the story, rip my inbox, holy smokes. I'm glad most of you enjoyed my story and had their own stories to tell about Gabrielle's in their lives. I'm honestly so sorry you gotta deal with people like her as well. They really are the worst and give both good French and step-parents a bad lesson. Dad and Gabrielle were supposed to stay with us for a few days before I returned to work next week. All 4 of us got sick with the bug at one point or another during the last 6 months and have remained symptom-free. Thank goodness, so no need for us to quarantine once they arrived. They left this morning, but not before they had a vicious argument last night after my brother and I went to bed. And when I say vicious, I mean it was so loud we could hear every word. Thank God the neighbors couldn't hear, otherwise we might have had the cops called on us. Dad chewed Gabrielle out on what she wrote on the receipt and reminded her that she had promised him she'd be on her best behavior. After all, this restaurant was special to not just Mark and me, but to my dad as well. Gabrielle defended her actions, saying that it was not what she likes, etc., until she finally blew up and revealed the real reason she threw that tantrum in the restaurant. It turned out Dad was planning on surprising Gabrielle on a trip to one of the best restaurants in town to celebrate the anniversary of their first date, which was yesterday. She had found the reservations by accident and thought they were going to it the night they arrived when he was planning on taking her tomorrow to make it a real surprise. So us going to the Greasy Spoon instead of the super nice expensive restaurant really upset her and she thought that he was catering to his kids instead of her. The argument finally ended when my dad took to the couch downstairs fed up with her BS. So they left this morning and my dad did tell me before they left that he was gonna have a serious talk with Gabrielle about her behavior and that until she learned her manners he was not gonna take her out anymore, even to our place. Hopefully that will either be the wake-up call to Gabrielle to behave or to Dad that he should get out. And yeah guys, I gotta say, the relationship between the dad and Gabrielle or Gabrielle or whatever her name is seems super toxic and I hope the dad gets out ASAP. Either way, the next one is an Am I the A-hole story and it is titled Am I the A-hole for suing my cousin for $6,000 to pay for my hearing aids after he threw me in the pool? So my family is all on my cousin's side for this issue and I wanted some outside judgment. My cousin, 25 male, has always been the golden child of our generation. He's funny, good-looking and outgoing, not to mention a boy amongst girls. He's always loved to mess around and play pranks. For the record, I really dislike this cousin. I think he's irresponsible, childish and just annoying. I've had hearing problems for years. I recently got a $6,000 pair of hearing aids. And recently, at my grandmother's birthday party, we were all eating and drinking on the back porch. My grandmother also has a pool. My cousin decided he was gonna throw me in the pool because it would be funny to ruin my hair that I just got done that day. I repeatedly told him to stop and put me down in a very serious and not playful at all tone. He threw me in the pool and my hearing aids were ruined. Afterwards, when I told him what happened, he basically said, "Whoops, didn't know you had hearing aids now." When I told him the cost of them and that he would have to replace them, he freaked out and said no way. My family did not want me to make him pay for them because I significantly out-earn him and also everyone else in the family. He was in college at the time, barely making ends meet in a call center job. His girlfriend and him have a baby and they live in a 1-bedroom apartment. He refused to pay, so I took him to court and I won. He refused to make the payments after, so I took him back to court and his wages are now being garnished for the maximum amount, which is 20% of his total wages. It pushed him over the edge of what he could afford, so he has had to work extra and drop out of college to be able to pay their rent. My family is absolutely fuming at me. I think he made one bad choice after the other, and he has never given a sincere apology during this whole ordeal. Had he given a real apology after the incident and asked if he could wait till he finished school to pay me back, I would have been fine with it. But the entitled little prick is digging his feet in at every move. Am I the a-hole here? The only reason I could see me maybe being the a-hole is because it's affecting his child and girlfriend. And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know what you think about this in the comments. Is OP being the a-hole here or not? I would say the cousin absolutely deserved what he got coming to him. You don't just push someone in the pool, no matter who it is. That is assault in my book. And especially if that person has hearing aids, it is even worse. Comment number 1, not the a-hole. Your cousin ruined your $6,000 hearing aids despite your warning, so it's fair to expect him to pay for that damage. And while it's unfortunate the situation affects his family, he refused to take responsibility or apologize. You gave him a chance before taking legal action, and the consequences are of his own doing. And the next one is a petty revenge story, which is titled, Don't Wanna Pay Delivery? Okay then. So I took an out-of-state business trip 5 days last year for a conference. The company paid for the hotel, etc., and I chose to Uber to and from the airport at $60 rather than rent a car, as the conference center and hotel were connected. Breakfast and lunch were provided, but dinner was on my own for 5 nights since I had no car, so I ordered DoorDash and submitted my receipts. The finance officer declined to pay the delivery fees of around $6 per day, as those are not qualified expenses. Okay, no problem, I will follow the rules. Then this year, I went to the same conference again, rented a car at the airport, paid for hotel parking, gas before returning the car. Total cost to the company for 5 days at $1,000, but I was able to go get dinner myself and save the company the $6 daily fee. Rules are rules. And yeah guys, thanks for watching, I will see you again tomorrow.